I never thought family could make you feel like an outsider in your own bloodline. But that's exactly what happened the day my cousin decided to humiliate my son. My name's Andrew. I'm 37, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. The one who doesn't cause trouble, doesn't gossip, doesn't pick sides. I have a 9-year-old son named Ethan, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Smart, funny, a little shy, but with a kind of spark that makes you forget the world's ugliness for a while. I've raised him on my own since his mother passed away 5 years ago. So when people insult him, it hits deeper than anything else. My cousin, Nicole, has always been the opposite of me. Loud, dramatic, constantly seeking validation. She's 35, married to a man who looks permanently exhausted, and has 2 kids who mirror her attitude down to the eye rolls. Growing up, she loved to one-up everyone. If I bought a new car, she'd tell me how her husband's was faster. If I mentioned Ethan's good grades, she'd brag about her son's gifted program. It was harmless at first, just family competition, but somewhere along the way, it turned bitter, especially when my parents started treating Ethan like their little miracle after losing my wife. They'd invite him over for baking days, buy him books, even hang his drawings on the fridge. I never asked them to, but Nicole, she saw it as favoritism. The tension started simmering a few months ago. Family dinners became awkward. Nicole would make jokes about golden grandchildren, while smiling at me across the table, her voice sugary but sharp. Her kids would mimic her sarcasm. I'd brush it off because I didn't want Ethan to feel the hostility. But every jab left a little crack I tried to ignore. The day everything exploded was at my parents' anniversary party, a backyard gathering filled with laughter, food, and, unfortunately, family politics. My mom had spent weeks organizing it, inviting everyone she could. It was supposed to be a warm, celebratory evening. Ethan was helping my dad set up the speakers, running around with a slice of cake in one hand, a goofy smile on his face. That's when Nicole showed up, fashionably late as usual, with her 2 kids in tow and sunglasses still on even though the sun had set. She greeted everyone like she was arriving at a movie premiere, hugging my mom, kissing cheeks, commenting loudly about the decorations. Then she spotted Ethan near the snack table, proudly showing one of my uncles the Lego car he'd built for Grandpa. She walked over, heels clicking on the patio stones, her tone dripping with mock amusement. "Wow, Ethan," she said, voice carrying over the music. "Still playing with toys at your age?" Her son snickered beside her. Ethan froze, his smile fading. I was halfway across the yard when I heard it, and I tried to step in before things escalated. "Nicole," I called out, forcing a calm smile. "He just wanted to show Grandpa something he made." "It's fine." But she wasn't done. She turned toward me, her expression suddenly sharp. "Andrew, come on. You've spoiled him. You treat him like he's some kind of genius. He's not special. He's just a kid who's never been told no." The conversation around us began to fade as people turned their heads. My parents froze at the table, stunned. Ethan stood there, small and silent, his face red and trembling. I wish I could describe the sound that came out of my chest. It wasn't anger yet, more like disbelief. "That's enough, Nicole," I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. "You don't talk to him like that." She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Oh, please, Andrew. Everyone tiptoes around you because of what happened to your wife. But let's be honest, Ethan gets away with everything. Maybe it's time someone said it." There was a moment where I could feel every eye on me, every second stretching out like a rope ready to snap. I could see Ethan's eyes watering, his hand gripping the Lego car so tight it started to crack. My mother stood up, furious, but I motioned for her to stay seated. "You need to leave him alone," I said, steady but shaking. Nicole smirked, then muttered something about touchy parenting before turning away, acting as if she'd just dropped some truth bomb and was the hero for it. Ethan ran inside, and I followed him a few minutes later. I found him sitting on the stairs, tears silently falling down his face. He asked me, "Dad, am I really spoiled?" That broke something in me. I told him no, that he was kind, respectful, and that he didn't need to listen to anyone who made him feel small. He nodded, but the light in his eyes dimmed that night. I thought that would be the end of it. I figured Nicole would go home, complain to her husband, and move on to the next family drama. I underestimated just how far she'd go to make her point. The next morning, there was a knock on my door around 9 a.m. When I opened it, 2 people were standing there, one man, one woman, both holding clipboards and wearing polite but firm expressions. "Mr. Andrews?" the woman asked. "We're from Child Protective Services. We received a report concerning your son, Ethan." For a few seconds, I just stood there, confused. "There must be some mistake," I said slowly. "Who would report?" And then it hit me. I didn't even need to finish the sentence. They explained that someone had alleged emotional neglect and overcontrol, that Ethan was isolated, discouraged from socializing, and that I was unstable. I wanted to laugh, but my throat felt dry. They asked to come in, and I let them because I had nothing to hide. Ethan was in his room, playing quietly. They talked to him, looked around, checked the kitchen, his schoolwork, his room. When they left, they said everything seemed fine, but that they'd follow up. The second the door closed, I sat on the couch in silence. My hands were trembling. I didn't need evidence. I knew it was her. I could almost hear her smug voice saying, "I'm just trying to protect the kid." That night, I got a text from her. Just 5 words. "Maybe this will humble you." That's when the disbelief turned into something colder. I wasn't angry yet, not in the way that makes you yell or slam doors. It was the kind of anger that settles in your bones. The kind that makes you start thinking carefully, deliberately. I didn't reply, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wanted her to think I was shaken, that I was cornered. The truth was, I was already planning what to do next. But before I could act, she started spreading rumors, telling relatives that CPS found problems, that she'd always suspected something was off about me. Within a week, I went from being the quiet, dependable cousin to the whispered topic at every family gathering. My mother called, distraught, saying, "Andrew, she's telling people you're being investigated." I told her the truth, that everything was fine, that CPS found nothing. But I could tell she was shaken too. My father wanted to confront Nicole, but I stopped him. I told him, "Don't. Let her keep talking. I'll handle it." Ethan noticed the tension. He started asking why no one was calling us lately, why his grandparents seemed distracted on the phone. I told him sometimes adults make mistakes and believe things they shouldn't. He didn't deserve to carry that weight. But I did, and I carried it quietly, until one afternoon, about a week later, when I got another knock on the door. This time it wasn't CPS. It was Nicole herself, standing on my porch, arms crossed, that same smug look plastered across her face. "Can we talk?" she said, like she hadn't nearly destroyed my life. I wanted to slam the door in her face. Instead, I stepped aside. "Sure," I said. "Come in." She walked in like she owned the place, glancing around as if inspecting it for flaws. "You know, Andrew," she started, "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. But maybe now you'll realize you're not a perfect parent." I leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. "You called CPS on me, Nicole." She shrugged. "I was worried about Ethan. You're too protective. It's not healthy. And maybe this will make you reflect a little." I studied her face, the fake concern, the self-satisfied tilt of her chin. I realized something in that moment. She genuinely believed she was justified. She thought she'd taught me a lesson. What she didn't realize was that she'd just taught me something else entirely. I smiled. Not the friendly kind. More like the quiet, unsettling kind that comes when someone crosses a line they can't uncross. "You're right," I said softly. "I have been too protective. But don't worry, I'm done staying quiet." Her expression faltered for the first time. "What do you mean by that?" I didn't answer. I just told her she should probably go. She hesitated, gave me a suspicious look, and left. As her car pulled out of the driveway, I stood there for a while, hands in my pockets, heart beating steadily. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. And when I did, she'd finally understand what it feels like to lose control of a story you thought you could manipulate. The days after Nicole's little visit felt like walking through a fog. Thick, quiet, deceptive. She hadn't said much that day, but her smirk had done all the talking. I could tell she left my house convinced she'd won, that she'd rattled me, silenced me, maybe even embarrassed me into submission. What she didn't know was that I'd been taking notes, both mentally and literally. Every word she said, every call she made to relatives, every lie she whispered behind my back. I was keeping track. But while I was planning, she was busy twisting the knife. The next family gathering was my mother's birthday. Normally, Ethan and I would have been the first ones there. He loved picking flowers from our garden to bring to Grandma. and she'd always pretend to swoon over them like he'd brought her a bouquet from Paris. This time, though, the energy felt different. When we arrived, conversations dimmed just a little. Eyes flicked toward us, then away. My aunt gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Andrew," my mom greeted, wrapping me in a hug, but even she seemed tense. Nicole was already there, of course, holding court at the dining table like some self-appointed queen. She was pouring wine for everyone, talking animatedly about how kids these days need structure and how some parents just don't know when to set boundaries. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. She smiled sweetly when she noticed me, as if the last 2 weeks hadn't happened. "Oh, there's the man of the hour. How's Ethan doing?" Her tone dripped with fake concern. "He's fine," I said simply, guiding Ethan toward my dad, who gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Nicole's eyes flicked down at my son. "That's good. Kids are resilient, right? I just hope all that stress didn't affect him." I could hear my aunt inhale sharply. She knew what Nicole was doing. Everyone did. But no one said anything, because family confrontation, apparently, was worse than quiet cruelty. Ethan didn't understand the subtext, but he felt the tension. He stayed close to me, clutching the small gift bag we'd brought. My mom noticed and tried to brighten the mood, ushering everyone to the living room for cake. For a while, it almost felt normal. Laughter, candles, a chorus of off-key singing. But Nicole couldn't help herself. When it was time for my mom to open gifts, Ethan proudly handed her the little bag we'd brought, a framed photo of the two of them from last Christmas, which he'd decorated with a handmade border of pressed flowers. My mom's eyes welled up. "Oh, sweetheart, this is beautiful," she said, pulling him into a hug. Everyone clapped, except Nicole, who leaned toward her daughter and muttered just loud enough for a few people to hear. He probably didn't even make that himself. It wasn't subtle. My dad shot her a glare, but she just smiled innocently. Ethan looked up at me, confused. He whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" I knelt down and told him quietly, "No, buddy, you did everything right." But my blood was boiling. The woman had publicly humiliated my son once and gotten away with it. Now she was testing the limits, seeing how far she could go before someone stopped her. That night, after the party, I got a call from my mom. She sounded tired. "Andrew, I just want things to calm down. Nicole says she feels like you're angry at her." I laughed bitterly. "Mom, she called CPS on me." "I know," she said softly, "but she insists she was just concerned. She keeps saying she never meant harm." "Then why is she still talking about us?" I asked. My mom hesitated. "She's been saying things, yes. But you know how she is. If we give it attention, she'll keep going." That was the family's usual solution: silence. Pretend the problem doesn't exist and it'll fade away. But I knew Nicole. Silence wasn't a deterrent, it was encouragement. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. Ethan's classmates stopped inviting him to playdates. One parent who used to chat with me at pickup suddenly avoided eye contact. When I asked another dad about it, he awkwardly mentioned that someone had been talking about how I controlled Ethan too much, how I never let him socialize. I didn't need to guess who that someone was. Nicole's kids went to the same school. She was poisoning people quietly, one rumor at a time. And the worst part? Ethan started believing some of it. One night, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his homework, his eyes red. "Dad," he said, voice trembling, "why do people think you're mean?" I froze. "Who told you that?" "Some kids said their mom told them you're crazy, that you got in trouble." He looked at me, tears welling. "You're not mean, right?" That was the moment something inside me shifted completely. It wasn't just about pride anymore. It wasn't about family politics or saving face. Nicole had dragged my son into her war, and that made it personal in a way I couldn't forgive. I took a deep breath and said, "Listen, Ethan, sometimes people lie because they want to feel better about themselves. But we don't let them win, okay?" He nodded slowly, but I could tell the words didn't erase the hurt. After that, I started documenting everything. Every rumor, every comment, every text. My father quietly helped me. He'd overhear her on phone calls at family events, talking about Andrew's meltdown, or poor Ethan having such a strict dad. He'd jot down dates, times, witnesses. My mother hated it, but even she couldn't deny what was happening. Then came the school incident. It was a Friday afternoon when I got a call from Ethan's teacher. She sounded hesitant. "Mr. Andrews, we had a small situation today." One of the students told Ethan that he shouldn't talk to anyone because his dad might get arrested. I felt my stomach drop. Do you know who said that? She sighed. It came from Nicole's daughter, apparently. I just thought you should be aware. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the moment Nicole must have told her kids something. The way her lies were now shaping how other children treated my son. She wasn't just gossiping. She was systematically destroying his reputation. A 9-year-old's reputation. At that point, I knew confronting her wouldn't change anything. People like Nicole don't respond to reason. They respond to consequence. But before I made any moves, I wanted to understand her angle. Why? Why go to this extreme? The answer came a week later, in the form of a casual remark from my aunt during Sunday dinner. Well, Nicole's thrilled about her new promotion, she said. She told me she might finally have enough to buy Grandma's old lake house. Isn't that where you were planning to move, Andrew? I paused mid-bite. The lake house. My aunt nodded. You mentioned it months ago, remember? You said you were saving for it, to give Ethan more space and quiet. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I told Nicole that actually. And suddenly, everything clicked. Nicole wasn't just jealous, she wanted something. My grandparents had left that lake house to my mother, who'd been planning to sell it to me at a family discount. Nicole must have found out and decided to ruin my reputation before I could finalize the deal. Because if I looked unstable, who would sell me a property meant for a family environment? It was manipulation layered in deceit, smear my name, make me look unfit, then swoop in as the responsible relative. It wasn't just about Ethan. It was about power, money, and control. That night, I sat in my car outside my house for nearly an hour, staring at the dashboard. Every ounce of restraint I'd built up was gone. I wasn't the quiet cousin anymore. I was a father who'd been pushed too far. The next day, I started digging. I asked around, looked through property listings, and confirmed what I suspected. Nicole had already spoken to my mother about buying the lake house, framing it as a way to keep it in the family, while subtly suggesting that I was too overwhelmed to manage it. She'd even mentioned CPS concerns to justify it. My mother hadn't agreed to anything, but she'd been hesitant to bring it up to me. She didn't want to cause drama. That was Nicole's gift. She thrived in environments where people avoided confrontation. She weaponized politeness. But I was done being polite. Still, I didn't act right away. I wanted to see just how far she'd go before showing my hand. Over the next 2 weeks, she ramped things up, little digs during phone calls with relatives, accidentally leaving out my name in family group messages, even throwing a back-to-school party for the kids and conveniently not inviting Ethan. When my mother confronted her about it, Nicole claimed she didn't think he'd feel comfortable after everything that happened. That was the final straw. I remember standing by the window that night, watching Ethan draw quietly at the table, his face calm but distant. He'd stopped asking to visit family, stopped smiling as much. She'd taken something from him, that innocent belief that family means safety. And that was something I was going to take back. So, I set my plan in motion. The first step was subtle. I reached out to an old friend from college, Megan, who worked in family advocacy law. She'd seen countless false CPS reports and malicious defamation cases. When I told her everything, she didn't hesitate. If you've got proof she made that call, Andrew, we can build a case. But don't move too fast. Let her think you're backing off. That was exactly what I did. I went quiet. I stopped showing up to family events. Stopped responding in group chats. Nicole probably thought she'd broken me. She started getting bolder online too, posting vague statuses about toxic parenting and family secrets. I had screenshots of everything. It was working perfectly. She was building her own rope, one rumor, one lie at a time. And when the moment came, I'd be the one holding the other end. But before I could make my next move, something unexpected happened. One evening, around 6 p.m., there was a knock at my door again. When I opened it, I froze. It was CPS again. The same woman from before, looking uneasy. "Mr. Andrews," she said carefully, "I'm sorry to bother you again, but we received another report. This time, it was anonymous." Anonymous? Sure. As she spoke, I could feel the walls closing in. Nicole was escalating faster than I anticipated. And this time, she might have just pushed things so far that there'd be no turning back. And that's when I realized, if she wanted a war, she was finally about to get one. When the CPS agent stepped inside again, I could already feel it in my bones. This wasn't going to be another routine check. Something about her expression told me she wasn't just here to tick boxes. Her tone was softer this time, almost sympathetic, but there was tension underneath it. "Mr. Andrews," she said, setting her folder on the table. "I want to assure you we're not here to accuse you of anything. We're following up on a new report, and it's a bit more serious." My stomach dropped. Serious how? She glanced down at her notes before meeting my eyes. The report claims Ethan was seen with bruises and appeared fearful of going home. It also alleges that you yelled at him in public and that he's being emotionally manipulated. For a moment, the room felt like it tilted. "That's a lie," I said flatly. "Ethan doesn't have bruises. He's a kid. He plays, he falls. And I have never yelled at him in public." She nodded carefully. "We believe you, but we're required to verify the claims." I called Ethan into the room. He came downstairs in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, clearly confused. When the agent asked if she could speak with him privately, I nodded, because I had nothing to hide. He led her upstairs to his room, where she talked to him for about 15 minutes. I could hear muffled voices through the thin walls, her calm tone, his small, earnest replies. When they came back down, Ethan looked fine, if a little uncertain. The agent thanked me, promised to file her report quickly, and left. As the door shut, Ethan turned to me and whispered, "Dad, why do people keep asking if you hurt me?" That sentence hit harder than anything Nicole had ever said. My throat went tight. "Because some people don't know the truth, buddy," I said quietly. "But they will." That night, after putting him to bed, I sat in the living room staring at the ceiling for what felt like hours. The quiet hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house. My phone sat on the table, screen lighting up with a few unread messages, family group chat notifications. I opened it out of habit. Nicole had sent a picture. It was of her kids and my parents at the lake house. The caption read, "Making memories at Grandma's favorite place." I froze. That house was supposed to be mine. My mom had promised it to me months ago, saying she wanted Ethan to grow up somewhere peaceful. I hadn't signed any papers yet. We'd agreed to sort it out once I had saved a little more for the down payment. But now Nicole was there, smiling, holding a glass of wine in the photo, standing on the porch I'd spent my childhood summers dreaming about. I called my mother immediately. She answered on the second ring, her voice wary. "Andrew, please don't be upset. Why is Nicole at the lake house?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. She wanted to take her kids for the weekend. I didn't think it would matter." "Didn't matter?" I interrupted. "Mom, that place is supposed to be for Ethan and me. You said you were holding it for us." "I know," she said, voice small. But she asked so nicely. She said she wanted to see if it would be a good fit for her family, and she sounded so sincere. I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "She's manipulating you, Mom. She's been manipulating everyone." My mother sighed. "Andrew, I don't want to take sides." "Mom," she called CPS on me. Twice. There was silence on the other end. Then, softly, she told me she didn't. She said she'd never do something so cruel. I let out a bitter laugh. "She's lying. You know she's lying." But I could tell by the hesitation in her voice that she didn't want to believe it. That was the worst part. Nicole had poisoned her, too. Little drops of doubt mixed with feigned innocence. She'd made herself the victim of my supposed anger. When I hung up, I felt a mix of fury and disbelief. Not just at Nicole, but at my own family for letting it happen. Over the next few days, the betrayal deepened. Nicole wasn't just staying at the lake house. She was redecorating it, posting photos on social media of fixing up Grandma's old place. My aunts were commenting heart emojis. Even my dad, who'd been on my side for months, sounded uncertain when I called him. "Your mother doesn't want to fight about it, son," he said tiredly. "Nicole offered to buy the place at full price. Your mom figured it would be easier than waiting." "Easier for who?" I asked, voice cracking. "For her? For you? What about Ethan?" He didn't have an answer. That was when it hit me. Nicole had played the long game. First, destroy my credibility. Then, make me look unstable. Finally, swoop in to take what she wanted while everyone else believed she was doing the mature thing. And it was working. The next morning, Ethan asked if we could visit Grandma. I didn't want to tell him she was at the lake house with Nicole, so I said she was busy. He didn't push. But that evening, while scrolling through my phone, he saw the same picture I had. Nicole's kids fishing off the dock where he used to swim. His little face fell. They're at Grandma's? He asked. I hesitated. Yeah, buddy. Just for the weekend. Can we go too? My heart clenched. Not this time. He stared at the screen, then quietly walked to his room. I could hear him crying behind the door, muffled sobs he was trying to hide. That sound, that quiet heartbreak, did something to me I can't even describe. The next day, I went to my parents' house in person. My mother looked startled when she saw me at the door. Andrew, this isn't a good time. Then make time, I said. We sat in the living room. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice once. I just laid everything out. Every rumor Nicole had spread, every CPS visit, every photo she'd posted pretending to own that house. I even showed her the text Nicole had sent me. Maybe this will humble you. My mother's face paled. I didn't know. She's trying to ruin me, Mom. And now she's taking Ethan's future too. For a long time, my mother didn't say anything. Then she whispered, she told me you were paranoid. I let out a humorless laugh. Of course she did. Later that evening, while I was still there, my mom's phone buzzed. She looked down, and I caught the name on the screen, Nicole. She answered, speaker on by accident. Hey, Aunt Marie. Nicole's voice chirped through the line, falsely bright. Just checking in. Oh, and don't forget about the meeting with the realtor next week. I sent you the documents for the lake house. So exciting. My mother's hand trembled. Nicole, I thought we were just discussing it. Oh, come on, Nicole laughed. You said you wanted to sell it soon. Why not to me? It'll stay in the family. And honestly, I think it's better this way. Andrew's got enough on his plate. That last line landed like a slap. I stood up, walked to the door, and left without saying another word. When I got home that night, I sat in my car again for nearly an hour, replaying every conversation, every lie. Nicole hadn't just humiliated me. She'd turned my family against me, made my son question his own home, and now she was taking the one piece of peace we'd been looking forward to. And that's when I realized something chilling. She didn't even see it as cruelty. To her, this was justice. She thought she was the righteous one, punishing me for being arrogant, for having the life she wanted. I knew what I had to do next, but I also knew I couldn't do it in anger. Because revenge, when rushed, is just noise. I wanted silence, the kind that comes after a storm when everything's been wiped clean. So I waited. A week later, my father called me, his voice low. She's moving her stuff in, he said. Boxes, furniture, everything. Your mother's crying. She says she feels trapped. I felt my pulse quicken. Did she sign anything yet? Not yet, but she's close. That was it, the moment I'd been bracing for. The point of no return. That night, I called Megan again, my lawyer friend. I told her everything, and she said 6 words that stuck with me. If she forged or coerced anything, she's done. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just sat in the dark, thinking about Ethan, about how this was no longer just about property or pride. It was about showing him that when someone crosses you, when someone tries to take your dignity, you don't crumble. You don't hide. You rise. And as I watched the sun rise through the blinds, I knew one thing for sure. Nicole had finally gone too far. She thought she'd taken everything from me. But she was about to learn that the quiet ones, the ones who endure, are the ones who hit the hardest when it counts. It's strange how silence can feel heavier than noise. After everything Nicole had done, the humiliation, the CPS calls, the rumors, the lake house betrayal, the house became unbearably quiet. Even Ethan had stopped asking questions. He'd wake up, eat breakfast in silence, go to school, come home, and sit by the window like he was waiting for something that wasn't coming back. And maybe that's exactly what I was doing too. For weeks, it felt like the universe had folded in on itself. I kept going through the motions, work, errands, making dinner, but there was this constant, hollow ache in my chest. Every time I looked at Ethan, I saw the fallout of someone else's cruelty. He was only 9, but he'd learned too soon that adults could lie with smiles on their faces. I thought the worst was behind me. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Wednesday, plain white envelope, official-looking seal. When I opened it, my hands started to shake. It was a notice of intent to transfer property. Nicole had made an offer on the lake house, and my mother had signed it. The deal wasn't finalized yet, but it was legally in process. She had done it. I sat there for a long time, staring at that letter, feeling my heart drop with each word. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up late, saving for that house, the down payment fund, the drawings Ethan made of what his room would look like by the lake, the small dreams we'd built around that place. Gone. All because of a woman who couldn't stand to see someone else happy. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat outside on the porch with a cup of cold coffee, watching the streetlights flicker. I remember thinking how easy it is to lose everything quietly. No explosions, no shouting matches, just a series of small, calculated cuts until you bleed out without even realizing it. That was my rock bottom. The next morning, my dad showed up at my door. His eyes looked tired, guilt written all over his face. "Your mom told me everything," he said, stepping inside. "She's not proud of what she did." Nicole pressured her. "Said you'd already told her you weren't sure you could handle the property." I frowned. "That's not true." "I know." He sat down at the table, lowering his voice. "She played her perfectly. She brought the kids over, made your mom feel like a grandmother again. She told her she wanted the house so they could keep family traditions alive." He paused. "Your mom signed before she realized what she was doing." I leaned back, staring at the wall. "So it's done?" "Not yet," he said. "Technically, the sale isn't final. Nicole still needs the last approval from your mom's lawyer and the funding." Something inside me clicked. "Funding?" He nodded. "She's applying for a family loan from the bank. Says she's using her promotion money as a guarantee." And right there, in that small moment, a spark lit inside me. She wasn't untouchable. She had overextended herself. She'd made herself vulnerable. I didn't show my father what I was thinking, but when he left, I sat down at my computer and started piecing together everything I'd gathered: screenshots, messages, recordings, even the CPS documentation that proved she'd filed those false reports. Megan, my lawyer friend, had told me to keep them just in case. I hadn't realized until now how valuable that just in case would be. Over the next few weeks, I started moving differently. While Nicole flaunted her new future lake house on social media, I was quietly building my own arsenal: legal, professional, and personal. I reached out to Ethan's school counselor, who provided a written statement verifying that the CPS claims were unfounded and disruptive to Ethan's emotional well-being. I gathered financial records showing how I'd been saving for the lake house long before Nicole's supposed offer. I even compiled the texts and posts she'd made implying that I was unstable, a clear pattern of defamation. Megan reviewed it all. "Andrew," she said one night over the phone, "if this goes to court, you'll win. But what? You need to decide what kind of win you want. Legal victory? Or total silence?" I didn't answer right away, because honestly, I wasn't sure. The old me, the quiet, peacekeeping version of myself, wanted to end it cleanly and move on. But the father in me, the one who'd watched his son's confidence crumble because of someone else's lies, he wanted something more than justice. He wanted closure. Still, I knew revenge without precision was chaos. And chaos was what Nicole thrived in. So I did something she never expected. I disappeared. Not literally, but socially. I stopped engaging with her. I stopped defending myself to family. I even stopped showing up to events where she might be. At first, it hurt, like giving up the fight. But over time, it became liberating. The silence she used as a weapon was now mine. And while I was silent, she got louder. She started posting more frequently. Pictures of the renovation progress at the lake house, long captions about taking control of your life and not letting toxic people hold you back. Family members, unaware of the full truth, showered her with praise. She basked in it, thinking she had finally rewritten the narrative. But the louder she got, the sloppier she became. In one of her posts, she mentioned her big promotion as the reason she could afford the lake house. What she didn't realize was that her company had a strict policy against employees using their positions or salary claims in public property transactions. Megan pointed this out when she saw the post. "If her employer sees this, she could be in serious trouble," she said. I didn't send it to them. Not yet. I wanted to wait. Timing was everything. Meanwhile, something unexpected began happening. Life started improving. Slowly, subtly, almost in spite of the chaos. Work picked up. I got a small raise. My boss mentioned I seemed more focused lately. Ethan started smiling again. Not all the time, but enough for me to notice. He joined an art club at school, made a couple of new friends. We started hiking on weekends again, our old routine before everything went wrong. There was still a shadow in his eyes sometimes, but it was fading. I started to realize that maybe my real comeback wasn't about destroying Nicole. It was about rebuilding what she couldn't touch. One night, After putting Ethan to bed, I sat down with a notebook and wrote out everything I wanted for us. Not revenge, not validation, just goals, stability, a sense of peace. I wanted Ethan to grow up in a world where he didn't have to flinch when someone said family. But fate, or maybe irony, had one more twist in store. A few weeks later, my dad called again. "You might want to come by the lake house," he said, his tone careful. "Something's going on." When I arrived, Nicole's car was parked out front, trunk open, boxes scattered everywhere. She was pacing on the porch, phone in hand, yelling into it. My mother stood near the door, arms crossed, expression unreadable. As I got closer, I caught fragments of the conversation. "What do you mean the funding fell through?" Nicole snapped into the phone. "You said it was guaranteed. You can't just—" "No, I can't wait another month. The papers are all ready." She turned and saw me, her face draining of color for a split second before she forced a tight smile. "Oh, Andrew," she said, lowering her voice. "Didn't expect to see you here." I smiled politely. "Just checking on the property I was supposed to buy." Her jaw clenched. "Supposed to?" I shrugged. "Well, since your funding's apparently fallen through." I let the sentence hang. She stiffened, clutching her phone tighter. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do." I stepped closer. "See, Nicole, you've been so busy tearing me down that you didn't realize you've been standing on a cliff the whole time." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" But before I could answer, my mom walked up beside me. "Nicole," she said quietly, "I'm canceling the sale." Nicole froze. "You can't do that." "Yes, I can," my mother replied, her voice shaking but firm. "The contract isn't finalized, and I've spoken to the lawyer." I was pressured into signing. "It's void." Nicole's expression twisted into panic. "You're making a mistake. He's manipulating you." She pointed at me like a child caught lying. My mom didn't flinch. "No, Nicole, I'm finally seeing things clearly." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Watching her facade crack was more satisfying than any argument could ever be. She stammered something about calling her lawyer, grabbed her phone, and stormed off the porch. That night, for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. But I also knew it wasn't over. People like Nicole don't retreat, they regroup. And I could already tell by the way she'd looked back at me, eyes full of venom, that she wasn't done. Still, things began to shift after that day. My parents started reaching out again, trying to mend things. My mother apologized, genuinely, painfully, and said she wanted to make it right. She even suggested putting the lake house in a trust for Ethan to prevent any future manipulation. It wasn't the victory I'd imagined months ago. It was quieter, more personal, but it meant something real. Meanwhile, I started working with Megan on a formal response to the CPS allegations, a report that documented the false claims, the emotional distress, and the harassment. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about reclaiming control. And in that process, something inside me began to rebuild. I started waking up earlier, going for runs again, cooking actual breakfasts instead of surviving on coffee. I even started drawing with Ethan, something we hadn't done since before everything fell apart. Little by little, the man Nicole tried to break began to reappear. The funny thing about hitting rock bottom is that once you've been there, you stop fearing the fall. You start seeing clearly who people are, what they want, and most importantly, what you'll no longer tolerate. Nicole had taken almost everything from me, but she'd also given me something in return: clarity. And clarity, I realized, is the most powerful weapon there is. Because while she was busy burning bridges, I was quietly building something stronger. And soon, she'd see that the man she thought was defeated was just getting started. I always believed that revenge was loud, slamming doors, screaming matches, fireworks. But when I finally started setting things in motion, I realized the most effective kind isn't loud at all. It's quiet, strategic, controlled. The kind that makes your enemy realize they built their own downfall one brick at a time. After the lake house fiasco, Nicole's reputation started to slip, just a little. People were beginning to notice cracks. My mother, once her biggest defender, kept her distance. My dad refused to attend any more of her family get-togethers. She was desperate to look composed, to prove she was still in control, but every post she made, every overcompensating smile, screamed the opposite. And I knew exactly how to finish what she started. Step 1 began with a small conversation, one that Nicole never knew happened. I met with Megan in her office downtown, documents spread across her desk. You said before you wanted closure, Megan said, flipping through the file. I think we can do better than that. Inside that folder was everything I'd collected, her texts, the CPS case numbers, the timestamps proving her as the caller, and screenshots of her public statements implying abuse. It wasn't just evidence, it was a pattern. Megan looked up at me. We're going to file for damages and a defamation suit. And we'll request full disclosure from CPS, which will make her report public record. I exhaled slowly. You're serious. Andrew, she said, smiling slightly. You don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You bring paperwork. I didn't file it right away. I wanted to give her just enough rope first. While Megan prepped the paperwork, I started rebuilding my social image, carefully, methodically. I began volunteering at Ethan's school, helping with community events. The same parents who once whispered behind my back now saw me as approachable, dependable. I didn't talk about Nicole. I didn't defend myself. I just showed up. That, more than any words, began changing minds. Meanwhile, Nicole was unraveling. Her big promotion, the one she bragged about endlessly, turned out to be temporary. Her company had caught wind of her social media posts implying financial gain from her job title. Someone had forwarded screenshots to HR. Let's just say I had a friend who knew exactly where to send them. Within 2 weeks, she was quietly reassigned. No public demotion, but the kind that leaves a permanent bruise on your career. And then came step 2, subtle exposure. My mother's guilt had turned into resolve. She'd started telling relatives the truth, not loudly, but in her own calm way. Nicole went too far, she'd say. Andrew was right. It spread faster than I expected. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, Nicole's usual dominance at the dinner table was gone. She arrived late, forced smiles all around, and couldn't meet anyone's eyes. At one point, she tried to approach me, maybe to play nice. Andrew, she began softly, we should talk. We've both made mistakes. I didn't even look at her. I didn't make any. She froze, face twitching. You can't stay mad forever. I'm not mad, I said calmly. I'm patient. That night, I sent the documents to Megan. She filed everything the next morning. Within 2 weeks, Nicole was served. The defamation suit was civil, not criminal, but the evidence was airtight. Megan had even attached witness statements from Ethan's teacher and counselor verifying the damage caused by the false CPS reports. It wasn't about money. It was about accountability. The first hearing was brutal for her. Watching her try to explain why she called CPS multiple times with fabricated claims, why she made social media posts implying neglect, why she contacted relatives to spread rumors. It was like watching her dig her own grave. She stuttered, contradicted herself, and eventually broke down crying, claiming it was out of concern. The judge didn't buy it. He ruled in my favor, full retraction, damages for emotional distress, and mandatory counseling for malicious interference with family welfare. It was poetic justice dressed in legal language. But that wasn't the part that truly satisfied me. The part that did was afterward, when she tried to talk to me outside the courthouse. You ruined my life, she hissed, mascara streaking her face. I looked at her, calm as ever. No, Nicole, you ruined your own. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She stared at me, speechless. For once, she had nothing to say, and that was when I realized I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't need to. She'd become her own punishment, surrounded by silence, stripped of credibility, forced to face a world that no longer believed her lies. Life moved on. The story of Andrew and Nicole became old family history, one people whispered about quietly but never dared revisit. Ethan and I finally got our peace. The lake house sale was officially voided, and my mother transferred the property into a trust under Ethan's name. When we visited it the first time after everything, he stood on the dock, eyes wide, smiling again. That real, unguarded kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. Dad, he said softly, can we live here one day? I looked out at the water, golden under the sunset. Yeah, I said. One day. He ran off toward the woods with his fishing rod, laughter echoing over the lake. I stayed behind for a while, breathing in the quiet. Not the kind of silence Nicole had used to hurt us. This was the good kind. The kind that meant freedom. And as the light faded, I thought about how strange it all was. How people like Nicole always think they're pulling strings, but they never realize the rope loops back around eventually. In the end, I didn't destroy her. I didn't have to. I just let her walk straight into the trap she built, one lie at a time, until she was standing alone in the wreckage of her own making. And when I turned to leave that night, I didn't look back. Because for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd already won. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It came in waves, slow and steady, like karma pacing itself just to make sure she felt every ounce of it. After the lawsuit, Nicole tried to play the victim card. She told anyone who would listen that I'd ruined her family and turned everyone against her. But the problem with people who lie too often is that they forget who they've told what. Her stories didn't match up. One week she said she was falsely accused. The next she claimed she did it for Ethan's safety. Either way, she lost the audience she'd spent years manipulating. Her husband, who had been quiet through all of this, finally snapped. I heard from my aunt that he packed up and left with their kids not long after the court ruling. "I'm tired of cleaning up your messes," he reportedly told her. "You don't just destroy people, you enjoy it." Those words spread fast through the family grapevine. For once, she wasn't the one whispering. She was the one being whispered about. Her friends dropped off too. The social circles she'd built on gossip and fake smiles evaporated overnight. No one wants to be close to a proven liar, especially one who weaponized motherhood to hurt someone else's child. She ended up moving out of town a few months later, claiming she needed a fresh start. But everyone knew what it really was: exile wrapped in denial. Meanwhile, life for me and Ethan turned quiet again, but in the best way possible. Peaceful. Clean. I stopped checking her social media. She barely posted anymore anyway. Instead, I focused on rebuilding what mattered: stability, trust, joy. Ethan thrived in school. His counselor told me he'd become more confident, even volunteered to help younger students with art projects. I think he needed to prove to himself, and maybe to me, that kindness wasn't weakness. And my parents? Well, they finally saw everything for what it was. My mom apologized more than once, and though it took time, I forgave her. She started spending weekends with us at the lake house, baking cookies with Ethan, helping him paint his room the color he wanted: ocean blue. My dad, ever the quiet man, just said, "You did good, son." And that was enough. There were still days when the memories resurfaced: the CPS visits, the whispers, the shame, but they didn't sting the same way anymore. They'd become reminders, not wounds. Proof of what we'd survived. Months later, when spring came, Ethan and I sat on the porch of the lake house, fishing rods in hand. The water was still, the air cool, the world finally calm again. He looked at me suddenly and said, "Dad, are we safe now?" I smiled, watching the ripples spread across the lake. "Yeah, buddy," I said quietly. "We're safe." We sat there for a long time, just listening to the wind and the birds and the soft hum of the world returning to normal. I don't know if he understood the full weight of everything that had happened. Maybe that was a blessing. Maybe he didn't need to. But I did. I understood that revenge wasn't about hurting back. It was about restoring balance, making things right without losing yourself in the process. As the sun dipped below the trees, painting the lake in gold, I reeled in my line and glanced at my son, peaceful, smiling, alive. That's when I realized something simple, something I'd been missing all along. Nicole had spent her whole life trying to prove she was winning. But real victory doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be lived. And as we sat there in the quiet glow of evening, I finally whispered to myself, not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of peace. She took everything she could from us, and we still came out on top.